1790 was a fairly quiet year for the Revolution. Exactly 1 year after the storming of the Bastille, there was a celebration known as the Fête de la Fédération to celebrate the storming of the Bastille and French unity.
Hey, hold on, passport.
The king?
Hey, come look at this. The king's here.
Where are you going?
Yeah, you're familiar. Aren't you supposed to be in Paris? Guards!
Oh, that's it.
Your hand.
The royal family's disastrous attempt to escape to Austria destroyed public support and trust for the king and queen, and was the beginning of the end for the monarchy. France drew up plans to try to conquer the Austrian Netherlands and German states to take important resources such as grain to help combat poor harvests of the previous years. On April 20th, 1792, France officially declared war against Austria due to its support for the royal family and Queen Marie Antoinette, who was Austrian by birth. Initially, the war went badly for France, and the French invasion was easily repelled. This encouraged Prussia to join the war, and soon the coalition invaded France. Panic swept across the country as Austro-Prussian forces captured town after town on the road to Paris. But French forces finally rallied and won a decisive victory at Valmy, pushing the invaders back. The early defeats of 1792 in the war against the coalition had further diminished support for the monarchy, resulting in the insurrection of August 10, 1792, that brought an end to royal rule in France. A few months later, the former king, Louis XVI, was put on trial for treason. The decision on the verdict was almost unanimously in favor of guilty, but disagreements rang out over the sentencing, with the moderate Girondins preferring to exile or imprison the king, while the radical Jacobins wanted death. Ultimately, the Jacobins won out, and Louis was executed on January the 21st, 1793.
Alright, defense counsel, rise.
Gentlemen of this court, it is questionable why the French people think Louis XVI is guilty, even though he has served them longer, more diligently than anyone else. He has successfully fought the American War of Independence to restore France's lost glory, help our allies in America, and above all, weaken our rival, Great Britain. Yet you treat this man as if he was a criminal, when he has helped the French people more than this court ever will. Because of this, I urge you to reconsider your prior decisions.
Okay. At this time, you've been sentenced, you are guilty, and you've been sentenced to death by the guillotine. Alright. Go ahead. Take him away.
Finally got what you deserve, badass.
Other members of the royal family would also meet their fate in the months and years following Louis's death. His former wife, former Queen Marie Antoinette, would also meet the same fate as her husband did on October 16, 1793, and their son, Louis Charles, would die of neglect in 1795. Ultimately, only Louis's daughter, Marie Theresa Charlotte, would survive the revolution. By mid-1793, France was still in a delicate situation. The country experienced violent royalist uprisings across the country, particularly in the Vendée region, and France was still at war with Austria and Prussia, though the front did stabilize. However, the revolutionary government was still paranoid over counter-revolutionaries retaking power. Hence, the Reign of Terror began as an attempt to silence the enemies of the revolution. This movement was spearheaded by Maximilien Robespierre, a former lawyer and now the de facto leader of the revolution. Executions increased dramatically between September 1793 to July 1794, resulting in, as the name suggests, widespread terror and paranoia. Eventually, the people grew wary of Robespierre and the radical Jacobin faction, and on July 28, 1794, Robespierre and his colleagues were also guillotined, ending the terror. By the time of Robespierre's death, France was in a good position militarily in continental Europe. It had conquered the Austrian Netherlands by 1795. French territorial expansion continued under Napoleon, and by 1812, France dominated Europe, maintaining the largest empire in Europe since the Roman Empire. Yet, as quickly as France conquered Europe, it fell with even greater speed, and by 1815, France was once more under the governance of a monarchy.
Dude, you're the one supposed to be putting me in there. Why would I willingly go in there?